The latest Afrobarometer survey unveils that most Gambians lack trust in their local government councillors. Stay tuned for more details. Russia intensified its military operation in Ukraine more than 1 year after invading the European country. And the World Health Organization called for more vigilance amid the global surge of the cholera disease. Well, this and more coming your way on The World Today. Hello, this is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching The World Today News Bulletin coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail. Now, barely 2 months to the much talked about local government elections in the country, an Afrobarometer around 9 survey reveals that Gambians' dissatisfaction with the performance of their local government councillors. Now, the Afrobarometer report indicates that 59% of Gambians give their local government councillors a negative performance rate or rating, while only a few citizens think that their local councillor try to listen to what people say. But only about a quarter of the respondents report having contacted their councillors during the previous year. Reporter Yahya Jammeh has more details of that in this report.
The recent Afrobarometer 9 survey reveals that a majority of Gambians express a lack of trust in their local government councillors, and with some alleging that most councillors are corrupt. The Afrobarometer team in the Gambia, led by the Center for Policy Research and Strategy Studies (CEPRAS), interviewed 1,200 adult citizens of Gambia between 30th August and 19 September 2022. A sample of this size yields country-level results with a margin of error of plus or minus 3% points at a 95% confidence level. Previous surveys were conducted in the Gambia in 2018 and 2021. The Afrobarometer revelations may not look good in the eyes of most of the councillors, as the next councillorship elections are due in April. The survey, however, further reveals that about 1 in 10 Gambians, which is equal to 39%, said that local government councillors never try to listen to what citizens have to say, but only 23% said councillors often or always listen. Presenting the report, Mr. Lang Sanyang, a researcher at CEPRAS, explains in detail the findings of the citizens' views on the local government councillors.
Corruption among local government councillors. The respondents were asked, how many of the following people do you think are involved in corruption? Or haven't you heard enough about them to say? Local government councillors are the ones we are looking at. 7% said none, which means they think that they are not corrupt. And you have 52% that is saying some of them. And 23% believe that most of them are corrupt. And 10% all of them. And we have 8% who are not sure or they have not heard about it. Most or all local government councillors perceived as corrupt. You can see the trend. In 2018, it was just what? 19%. But today, that's last year, 2022, it had increased from 19 to 33% of people thinking that all or most or all local government councillors are perceived to be corrupt.
Fatou Jain Senghor, an independent expert in human rights and governance, commended Afrobarometer and its partners for the initiative. She said the survey shows that Gambians are conscious of their rights and what they want.
From the discussions and the research, we've seen clearly that citizens in the Gambia have changed. They know their rights. They know also what they want. They want a consolidated democracy. They know the importance of freedom of expression and access to information. It is also clear from the research that they are concerned about the lack of accountability of their leaders and also the overall, issues of corruption. What we are seeing also that, yes, it is reflected in the reality because there are no mechanisms. We have a law on access to information, it's not yet implemented, so hence the gap. So yes, citizens know it is important to have information, but they cannot exercise that right yet.
Madam Jane Senghor also urges authorities to rely on the data to improve policy making. Afrobarometer is a pan-African non-partisan survey research network that provides reliable data on African experiences and evaluation of democracy, governance and quality of life. 8 rounds of surveys have been completed in up to 39 countries since 1999, and around 9 surveys are currently underway. Afrobarometer conducts face-to-face interviews in the language of the respondent's choice. With elections approaching, many believe such surveys are good in order to improve citizens to elect competent and hard-working leaders who shall steer the affairs of their constituencies and wards. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Mariama Cham.
And from the report here, now elsewhere in the continent, the recent comments made by the Tunisian president directed at African migrants have not gone down well with activists in the North African country. Now, thus calling for respect of the migrants in the country. Now, the activists said while the president has the right to protect his country against any threat, but noted that his discriminatory speech and incitement of violence towards migrants are unacceptable. Now, President Kais Saied has, however, warned against assaults that might target Africans legally residing in Tunisia and called for their protection. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Activists have taken issue with the arbitrary arrests by Tunisian police, targeting dozens of African regular and irregular migrants. They claim there is a gap between the official discourse of the state, calling for respect of migrant rights, and the reality of the abusive practices against such minorities. Activists say the president's recent speech included incitement to hatred and racial discrimination.
Sub-Saharan communities have been aggressively targeted, assaulted, their property looted, and have been evicted from their homes. This is unacceptable. The president has the right to defend his country against any security threat, but not through violence. The president's discourse was perceived as a green light for people to target migrants.
Students say Tunisia's black population, which is an integral part of the society, is also considered and treated as foreign by some racist groups. Many Tunisians argue that freedom of speech is not freedom to spread racial hatred in the streets and on social media.
Even black Tunisians are targeted by hate speech and racism, while the majority of the population in the south of Tunisia is made up of black people who are Tunisian nationals.
Tunisian President Kais Saied insists he never called for racial discrimination against migrants. The head of state has urged government officials to protect and defend the rights of sub-Saharan Africans legally residing in Tunisia.
I warn against assaults that may target our brothers from sub-Saharan Africa residing legally in Tunisia. My call for an urgent end to the influx of sub-Saharan African migrants into Tunisia has been exploited by imposters and malicious people by using the card of racial discrimination. They seek to sow discord and division and to damage Tunisia's relations with African states.
The president has also declared that no racial discrimination can come from the country whose old name was Eyeafrica, which means Africa. The head of state added that sub-Saharan Africans who have come to Tunisia have found refuge in the country, but they are not above the law.
And that anti-racism report there is coming from the North African country of Tunisia. Now in other news, February 24 marked 1 year since Russia launched a full-scale invasion of neighboring Ukraine, leaving 18 million people in need of humanitarian aid and protection. The war has entered its second year, and Russia is still showing unwillingness to abandon what it calls a special military operation in Ukraine. In the latest development, Russian forces have stepped up their weeks-long drive to lay a stage on the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, and the situation, according to reports or Russian authorities, is extremely tense. Now, let's have more details of that in this report by Moses Imende.
Russia's troops are still not holding back in battling to seize control of the key Ukrainian cities. Amid strong resistance from the opponent's forces more than 1 year since it began a full-scale invasion of the European country. Both Russia and Ukraine shared the spoils of the war and suffered grave human costs while cities run aground as diplomacy and negotiations fall short of a peace deal due to a lack of cooperation from the Russian government. According to the latest media reports, Russia has stepped up a new attack on the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, with fighters trying to cut the Ukrainian fighters' supply lines to the city to force them to subdue. The attack, if successful, will give Putin his first major victory in more than half a year and open the way to the capture of the last remaining urban centers in the Donetsk region. Ukraine's military is, however, resolute in its resistance against the Russian army, saying it repelled more than 60 enemy attacks and its forces also prevented attacks on villages to the north of Bakhmut. According to a Ukrainian military analyst, Ole Zidanov, the southern part of Bakhmut is the only area that can be described as under Ukrainian control. He said, the situation is unpredictable in all the other districts. Volodymyr Zelensky also revealed that the situation in the city is getting more and more complicated and that Russia is constantly destroying everything that can be used to protect Ukraine. Ukraine has again found itself in a precarious circumstance like it has on so many occasions in the last 12 months. But the United States is showing support without engaging. The U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was in Ukraine where she held talks with the Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, after which she revealed that the U.S. will provide nearly $50 billion in security, economic and humanitarian assistance, and announced another multi-billion-dollar package to boost the country's economy. U.S. President Joe Biden also recently paid an unannounced visit to Ukraine in a show of support and said Ukraine stands strong and Moscow will never defeat it. The EU and the US have employed sanctions and trade barriers to weaken Russia's position, but Russia has proven time after time that it will not be stopped by such tactics. For Eyeafrica News, I am Moses Imende.
And from the report there by Moses Imende, now into some of the news. The prevailing economic hardship in Lebanon, triggered by high inflation, soaring prices of essential food items, and other related factors, left most citizens struggling for survival. Now, the latest World Bank report indicates that food prices increased in more than 100% from September to December 2022. Here's more details of that in this report.
Currency devaluation, political deadlock, soaring fuel prices, and a 3-year economic crisis are pushing Lebanese citizens to the brink of poverty. Earlier this month, the Lebanese pound sank to a new record low of 80,000 against the US dollar. This after a 90% currency devaluation on February 1st. The results have been sky-high cost of living and food prices. According to the latest World Bank report on food safety, Lebanon's food price inflation rose by a whopping 143% from September to December last year.
Everything is high, but the salaries are as low as before. We cannot bear it. In the past, we would usually buy 3 to 5 kilograms of onions each time, but now we can only afford 1 onion. This has never happened in Lebanon, and it's getting worse.
The Lebanese pound has been suffering since the country's financial meltdown in 2019, losing more than 97% of its value against the dollar on the parallel market. The country logged an annual inflation rate of over 170% last year, according to official figures.
This is Eyeafrica TV, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin, coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And from that economic report here from Lebanon, we now take a break and come back shortly.
South Africa Global is the first and biggest private estate developer in the Gambia and present in 7 other African countries. We take pride in leading innovation in all spheres of real estate sector in the Gambia and beyond. As such, we are launching the development of the first smart and modern office and retail towers in the Gambia called Taft Twins. The Taft Twins is located in the heart of the Kanifing institutional area. and 10 minutes drive away from Banjul. Tough Twins is designed to have 5 floors of office spaces ranging from 50 square meters to over 1,000 square meters, with 2 elevators, central air conditioning, 24 hours electricity and water supply, with the ground floor reserved for banking, supermarket, restaurant and coffee shop. For your bookings and reservations, please call now on 376-2333 or 776-2333. Thank you.
Welcome back, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV. And once again, many thanks for joining us. Let's now look at the rest of the stories. Now, the World Health Organization has warned this week that the global surge of cholera cases has put more than 1 billion people in 43 countries at risk. At a news conference on Friday, the WHO cholera team leader, Philippe Barbosa, told reporters there are more countries have reported cholera outbreaks last week. Our reporter Moses Imendi again has the details in this report.
The rude awakening has compelled the World Health Organization to solicit more support to combat the widespreading cholera outbreak. The agency is appealing to donors to support a $25 million fund to help prevent the cholera outbreaks and save lives. So far, 22 countries across the world are fighting outbreaks of the acute diarrheal infection caused by eating or drinking contaminated food or water. The head of WHO cholera team, Philippe Barbosa, said the number of cholera cases soared in 2022 following years of falling numbers of cases, adding that the trend is expected to continue into this year and that cases have been reported in 5 of the 6 regions where WHO operates. Dr. Barbosa identified poverty, disasters, conflict and climate change as the driving factors of the disease, alongside a lack of access to safe drinking water and sanitation. Drawing attention to the limited number of vaccines, medicines and testing kits, he observed that an unprecedented situation requires an unprecedented response. About 37 million doses are said to be available in 2023, while more doses are expected by next year as cholera deaths and risks around the globe continue to grow. According to WHO, an estimated 26,000 cases and 660 deaths have been reported as of January 29, 2023, in 10 African countries facing outbreaks since the beginning of the year. Meanwhile, last year, nearly 80,000 cases and 1,863 deaths were recorded from 15 affected countries. For Eyeafrica News, I am Moses Imendi.
A reporter back to matters in the African continent. Tropical, of course, cyclones Freddy dumped dangerous and exceptional rainfall levels over Mozambique as the storm continues to wreak havoc across South African countries, according to reports. Severe damages and bad weather had hindered the rescue operations in the country, thus leaving many, of course, many of the victims in the dire situation. And let's have more details of that in this report.
Heavy rains, floods, and the risk of landslides are hindering recovery efforts in Mozambique after the country was pummeled by Tropical Cyclone Freddy last week. Thousands have relocated to government shelters or those provided by international organizations, and for others, a lack of fresh water is a grave concern.
The water company can no longer deliver us water, so we have to use rainwater. When it rains, even at night, we will use buckets to collect rainwater, which helps when the water company fails.
Severe flooding is also lifting river levels and increasing the risk of landslides. Cyclone Freddy is compounding an already dire situation in Mozambique, where 2 million people need humanitarian assistance across several northern provinces. According to the World Meteorological Organization, Mozambique is regularly hit by the impacts of tropical cyclones, and flooding often poses a greater risk than high winds.
And you have been watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And from that disaster-related reporter from Mozambique, we now eventually bring this news edition to an end. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and do have a pleasant evening. Bye for now.